All right, everybody. So, welcome. We're going to get into introductions here. We'll give everybody about 2 minutes, I think, to get settled in. I know it's a noon o'clock in the Central Time, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 10 o'clock Pacific Time. Try to time this thing perfectly. If you're not here, you're listening to this and as a recording. So, kind of what's in store for you guys is about 30 to 35 minutes of us giving you 30 pieces of slides that have really good information. And it's going to give you some value to not only walk away with, hey, here's how I could do this. Here's how I'm thinking about this, or another way to think about it. You're also getting a couple tidbits that we're going to give you. I love the word tidbits.
Mm,
We're going to give
word.
you a guide on how to write a CEO, an email to a CEO based off the research that we use and kind of the style that we write, as well as the magnetic method prompt. So, this is the exact prompt and science we use to create our sequences across LinkedIn DMs, email, SMS. It's good stuff. So, Melissa, I'm going to hand it over to you while we get ready here to kick off.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. My name's Melissa Goodwin. I'm the CEO of Magnetic. And I've spent a lot of my career probably, I've definitely launched over 35 products over a variety of industries, everything from ed tech to healthcare, um, and even from the aging in place industry. So a lot of time growing products, scaling businesses, driving revenue growth. And I'm just really excited to be here today. Now, as a CEO of Magnetic, I'm focused on helping businesses simplify their outreach, amplify their outreach, and grow I have a background in design thinking. We use AI and systems thinking to help businesses grow. We also have a podcast called the A/B Test Podcast. Super fun. We test all kinds of wild things, break down strategies for smarter growth. And today I'm really excited to be co hosting this with Steve Schmidt.
So excited, as you would
So
say, Melissa. You
excited.
even said it yourself. You're so excited.
So excited. I am excited, actually. This is a
Yeah.
really fun opportunity for us to be able to share a little bit of what's under the hood of how we work and why we do what we do.
I'm Steve Schmidt, been around 25 years, hitting the halfway point on what they say is 100 years. So, if I can live 100 years, that'd be fantastic. Feel like I've learned more in the last year and with AI, sort of how we've been spit forward in sales. I've never been Um, excited is the wrong word. I've never been more hopeful that sales, I think, can get to a stage where people can start to deploy systems that work instead of these spot solutions that we've invested in. And we want to be a part of that. We want to be a part of that. And it's hard work, it's arduous work. It doesn't always work. So we are not selling you or pitching you anything today. But if we were, it wouldn't be a magic bullet. Today, these are really best practices that we found, and at times I was like, well, this is kind of boring. It's not boring at all. It's actually like, no, this is actually the work that goes behind this. This isn't about likes. This isn't about pods. This is not about getting 100 likes or impressions. We like that when that happens, when it's people who can buy your product or influence those decisions. Anything before we dig in here, Melissa?
Well, the purpose of today's event really is to give you. Magnetic has been around for a little over two and a half years. And we've learned a lot in those 2.5 years about what works, what doesn't, what as it relates to content. And now with the advent of AI kind of in everything, we just thought this would be a good opportunity to share with you what methods from a content-led selling perspective work well, some tips and tricks, and show you our methodology. And hopefully you'll walk away with something actionable and useful.
Hopefully, we can't promise it, but we're pretty darn sure. So you're here today. Likely, if you're someone who we call it targeted in our target audience, we're someone who you think obviously can benefit from learning this information. So I want to thank you for your time again. Also, we have a podcast. It's funny. We'll talk about it at the end, but we're going to get in right now to information that will affect you. This is about you. We're done talking about anything related to us. Hiring salespeople stinks, right? I've done it. I've been the salesperson who's getting hired. They're excited, right? They want to make a bunch of calls. All of a sudden, you're looking at the dashboard and it's not really moving up. And 3 months into it, you're going, man, did I make the wrong decision? Because it only really works out 20% of the time. And maybe I had good intentions and they were great. And maybe I should take that person at the bottom of this who's an AI bot. Maybe I should just do that because that's cheap and they don't have to do anything, but that doesn't really work either. And so maybe you're one of those people, or Melissa, maybe they're one of these people.
Absolutely. So when you need to grow, one of the first things, a mentor or coach will often say is You as a person are not scalable. You as 3 people or you as 10 people are not scalable. So you need to automate some of your processes. So when you need to automate, I think there's just all these questions around, well, what do I automate? How do I automate? What tricks and tips do I need to use? And there's a lot of solutions. So LinkedIn automations, HubSpot automations, ClickFunnels, Zapier, Clay. There's lead gen agencies. There's AI SDRs out there. There's a lot of things to choose from, and it can be really overwhelming.
It can be. Or you could just hire Chads.
Thousand chads.
Yeah. I'm just going to let this sit here for about 5 seconds before we go to the next side. I like
I
to keep
did
it
see this and
interesting.
I love it. It is sort of like the Chad, Thad, Connor, they're all the bro squad. And I
Yeah,
mean we sort of do this tongue in cheek, but it does feel a little bit honestly finding an AI bot that doesn't sound like a bot is
pretty
it's
hard.
we haven't seen it yet. We
We're
haven't
not there
seen
yet.
that we haven't seen it be effective.
Yep. All right. What's the next one, Melissa?
Well, I think the what's interesting about this slide here is this is kind of one of the fundamental things we really hone in on when we start working with clients, and that is you need to look at your data, right? And maybe they don't have any data. So this is something that can feel really overwhelming. Every single client that we have worked with, we've had to do some data hygiene work. And that can be or refinement, right? And so a lot of times I think what happens is when we're defining our ideal customer profile, or if you call it a target or a persona or whatever the term is that you use, oftentimes we're too general. And when my background, I have a design thinking background, so I'm always trying to get into the head of the user. So not just is this a company with 40 employees plus, and have they been around for 5 years, and do they live in my geographic target? But what do they think about? How do they make decisions? When do they decide? When does the CEO look at the grid of what's important and what's important today and say, this is what I need to buy today?
Yeah.
Those are the things that's really critical as you think about content and you think about selling. Understanding the not just the demographic data, but the psychographic and the ethnographic data around your client. Get in their heads and then make your list reflect those people. It's one of the most fundamental and important things you can do.
Backing up into the last slide, something I wanted to mention is lists are, I don't even like to say the word list. I mean, you can picture a list, right? Think of data. It's just data. And companies don't have a lot of good data. As we're talking about AI and what AI can do, if you don't have good data, you're going to be dead in the water because you can't accelerate your data if you don't have good data. Most companies we talk to don't have good data. We don't have the best data, and so like number one, get your data right because if you want to be AI enabled, not just contact your customers, you're going to have great data sets. Two stories that are pretty great here. Zoom Info, one of our customers actually who uses our product for some of the LinkedIn and DM stuff that they're really successful with, reached $100 million with their new AI Copilot, AI bot uh, product. Salesforce just hired 2,000 reps to sell their new AI bot product, Agent Force. And so we're still using humans to drive this. And I think that's the thing is the data is not clean enough yet, right? So we can't rely on an AI bot to just to grab all the right data and say all the right things on all the data and the ethnographic and psychographic because we don't have it. When we get it, I think that's when you'll see AI be really useful. Until then, you're going to feel like this person in the room and you really got to focus on the people like she said who are going to buy your product. A couple things we talk about here real quick is people say email doesn't work. Well, yeah, because you're going to email people, it's probably not the right time and probably they didn't want to be emailed. But content, what we're going to talk about pretty soon, is that's there all the time. Not only in a feed, it's there when they go searching. And so that's really what we want to talk about. When we want to talk about time, it's not more emails. Yes, that can help, but it might be better content. It might be how do you make explainer videos. So when it is the right time, Melissa's going to get into YouTube and tell you Well, how do I now inform them and be that trusted authority at the bottom of the funnel with a video that they can easily find when otherwise I wouldn't know how to contact them? That's the power of content. Melissa, back to you.
Yeah, I guess the last thing around data, and if for some of our clients that are maybe they're buying a list, maybe they buy. I used to get hundreds of these emails, right? Like, buy. Do you want a list of so and so that went to this event? Just know that 30% of the data on those lists is old, not validated. There's you might as well. So 30% of your money is just being thrown away. You will have to validate that list and update that list. You need to have some ongoing data hygiene processes so that you continue to as you build and grow your list, your data, that it's clean and accurate. So a lot of work to be done in that space. Just know that those static lists that you purchase, a lot of times, even if you get it from a major provider, a lot of that data is old. So just
Right. As soon
be
as
aware
the
of that.
data's, isn't that the statistic, Melissa? 30%. As soon
Yeah,
as you get the data, it's no longer valid, right?
that's true. So I think lastly, just your time and your expertise. So as owners, business owners, I saw a meme the other day. It was all the hats you wear as a business owner was this giant sombrero. And it does feel like that. You're one minute you're in, talking about a P&L, and next minute you're diving into the weeds with a customer, and next minute you're with your team trying to figure out a really sticky problem. Next minute you're trying to think about how you grow your own company. And then, oh my gosh, I have to do my own content. It can feel really overwhelming.
I think I just heard you
And
say that this morning, Melissa.
I did. I woke up this morning at 4:45 and I was like, I need to make a post today. So I usually batch that out, but I didn't do it
That's right.
today. So
Yeah.
it's a lot. And so I can see where if you need to grow as a business, time and expertise, you're being stretched. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of issues as you think about growth.
Yeah. No worries. Just
Oh, and
go
then
buy
there's
some
this.
software. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just go
just
buy
go
some
buy all this
software.
stuff.
We've all done this. Some of it, I'm going to use a really good example of a really good software provider because this is not a bashing story. You've all heard of Gong. They do great jobs of recording calls, and they've always done a great job of breaking that down. And when I owned a lead gen agency, I thought, hey, we've got a problem. The problem is I don't know how to train all these reps on how to be as good at cold calling as I am. If I just bought software and listened to it, I could then learn all of their patterns and teach them. It'll be great. And I'll work through my managers. So we invested about $60,000 into the recording software. 2 months later, it was never logged into again because we had to build these libraries and then go label it a certain way. And you have to now you're building training libraries. And it just didn't do what we wanted it to do. It's not that they were over promises. We thought like this thing was going to be the silver bullet, right? And I'm not saying Gong isn't great. I'm just saying that we had thought we could solve a problem with software and it was a human problem. Software very rarely changes human behavior. Um, I think it just gives you a way to capture it and analyze it. And even then, we still had to go correct it and schedule one-on-ones and hope that they fixed it. And so it's one part of the equation. And I think we've all been there, Melissa. I don't know how many times you've been asked to buy things, hundreds, right? And I'm sure it looks appetizing or it looks like something that, hey, this could help. But I know you're one of those. That's why we hired you as a CEO. One of the many reasons you don't just get caught by the shiny diamonds. You stay focused. Um, Talk about that a little bit though, because there's a lot of things out there for everybody to consume, and it's fun.
I don't find it fun. I find it I so as a scientist, I always want to know what's going to work and what's the system and how does it work together. So I think that is the struggle. So if you look at this list of stuff and you're like most business owners or executives, you see this slew of technology and wonder which ones do I need. And so what they often do is you'll ask a friend, what do you use? Okay, I'm going to use that. And frankly, that's how a lot of decisions get made. Not that that's bad, but I think what we struggle with is just understanding what's most effective, when, and why. So once we know those things, we can figure out the right tools for our business.
These are pretty bold stats. You might want to screenshot them if you're looking to prove anything out or take some notes, Melissa. Let's go ahead and I'm going to keep this with you here.
Sure. So, if you think about sales and marketing, many times the funnels and the lists that those two teams are working from are different. So, one of the things that if you look at less than 5% have alignment between sales and marketing. And then when they looked at that 5% and asked them to dig into their data a little bit further, half of those folks said actually not so much. So 2.5% of executives say their sales and marketing is aligned. So that's a problem as we think about how we do our outreach, grow our companies, and align our work.
This next one, Melissa, I think we even changed this one just because we were like, wait a second. We've heard about video. We know people consume it. I think we think about it differently now. Um, we don't just think about the video, right, Melissa, in the LinkedIn feed. We think about video in multiple places. Let's talk about the multiple places people can use video.
So if your B2B buyers are researching a solution in your space, there is a 70% chance they're going to come across uh, look for video content, really either a review, a demo, some behind the scenes content about your company. And so you want to make sure that when you're creating content, you're aligning it to their buying journey and that it's searchable, that it's findable. So those are things as you think about creating content, understanding your buyer, understanding your messaging, and putting your content out there that they're looking and making decisions based on video content. So it's really important to be focused on that.
Yeah, which are you, right? And everybody, if you want to look at AI content, I think you're looking at the noise, the signal, which we're going to show you how to be a signal. Everybody wants that signal. You want to be the one that stands out, but we all kind of end up being the noise when we don't really have a strategy, when you don't have a system to stand out.
Well, and as a CEO, I'm and even prior to this role, I always said one of the most important skills is understanding signal to noise because there's lots of things to do, lots of things to chase. As you just saw in the previous slide, those thousands of point solutions that will promise you growth. How do you determine what's the best tool for you and when to use it so that you can have impact? Because all the rest of it is just not as important. So when we look at what people are using to buy today, they're looking, automations and content works. So as you think about how you can use those tools to really get traction for your company, we're going to share a little bit more about that here in the next few slides.
All right. So there are three things that matter when we talk to our customers, and we're going to break these down for you. We talked about a list. You saw that in the importance of that. So we don't want to overstate that. Right message. That's what are they receiving from you? That could be the content you see in a feed, a video, it could be an email. And then, of course, timing, right? The channel, time of day, it matters. There's a lot of different variables there. And a lot of people ask us, well, how do you know? And we would say, well, let's test it, right? We really don't know anything until we put things into orbit. That's part of the scientist that Melissa is and the salesperson I am. And that's why we say this is a scientist and a salesperson here. We always want to move the needle, but we have to test. We can't make assumptions on the message necessarily. But Melissa, how do people come up with the right message? Because I think that's one of the trickiest things for people to do is finding a message that's going to work. Because when they do, it feels really, really good.
Yeah. So we do spend a lot of time on this. So when we're honing in on the list, part of our process is really getting crystal clear on as we mentioned before, the demographic and psychographic data and even ethnographic data. What that means is you are researching look at your best client today, and we're going to build out a profile from them. How do they make decisions? And you can interview them. You can do research. I would not recommend necessarily buying research because it's usually old and it's somebody else's. They don't know your clients like you do.
Right.
Find some friendly clients that you can talk to and say, what made you buy my solution? What do you like about it? What are the things that, as you think about other tools out there, what makes ours different? And those are some of the things that are helpful. And then also from a decisioning standpoint, it's that a grid, right, of what's important and what's important today. Ask them what made this important for you to buy when you bought it. What was the trigger? And when you understand those things, now you can use that to craft your messaging. And whether that's in your videos, whether that is in your messaging, like your DMs in a really short format, or whether it's in your emails, now you know what makes them tick and people like them, what they're focused on. So when we do interviews where we're talking with our potential clients, we record those and we'll make notes like, here's the things we heard them say, here's the things that they're frustrated with, here's the things that, here's their dream state, this is what they want to see. And all of those things help you create the right message.
Your mom called. She said you neglected your list again. This is great.
So again, just really getting laser clear, on laser focused and really clear on your ideal customer. A great list also, we have to think about data enrichment. So as when you, whether it's a list that you have, maybe you pulled it from somewhere, we you likely have missing fields, missing spots. We want to make sure we can get this as complete as possible. And using data enrichment tools, there's a number of different options out there. Steve showed that slide of all the tools and techniques out there. That's something that we provide for our clients, but there's also tools that you can use and buy online to enrich your data. And then tagging and segmenting that so you're getting the as personalized and relevant as you can to your audience. And then just having an on, this is really important, an ongoing validation and data hygiene practice. So whether that's every couple of weeks, every month, is our list up to date? Are all the emails validated? Are all our fields filled in? How clean is our data?
Next slide. All right. So when you think about messaging frameworks here, this is where I spend a lot of my day, guys. So subject lines, hooks, copywriting best practices, that's more Melissa and her team, but it all really interweaves because if you think about a content that you're posting, why would you post about something unless it's self-serving, which unfortunately is a lot of what happens, unless it's of value to your customer and aligns with the same message you're putting out in your emails? I see a lot of people who are like, ooh, this will make a great post. It doesn't make any sense. I used to do it all the time. Here's a great idea, and ooh, I get some likes, but you're really confusing the people who are trying to understand what it is that you stand for. And it can be the same thing over and over again. People do the same thing for 20 years. People use you and move on, right? And so it's usually the people who can be consistently doing the same thing and not having to reinvent that. And that's my biggest thing I've been working on since Melissa's come in is really stay focused, right? Not having to reinvent, just get the message to work. And this is how we found that we get it better over time is this is the prompt that we're going to give you afterwards. When our customers come in, we just don't throw this into a prompt and say, there you go. That's the first stage. So as you look through that, think about the intake and it's going to give you an output. It's going to give you four messages. And then you're going to be able to look at it and say, wow, that's pretty good. And then go in and as Melissa and I would say, throw some dirt on it. And that's you putting some things that AI is just not capable on, the human touch. And there you have your first sequence to go outbound with and start, call it testing. You want to go to subjectline.com first. We talk about that subject lines. You want to go um, check your spam and your copy. A lot of words that you wouldn't think are spam are going to be spam. Those are resources that we're happy to give you if you want to DM Melissa or myself. But it all matters because if you hit go on the perfect Shakespearean written message, it doesn't matter unless you have those things right. And we won't even get into the technical stuff today. That this is just the copywriting best practices. And I think everybody on this call would agree it's really freaking hard to get email to work. And when you do, it feels really good. And we spend a lot of our time focusing on feeling really good or getting it to feel really good every day.
Yeah, I would just say, it is confusing because if you go on LinkedIn, you will see the things with the most shares and the most likes is pretty generic. You know, I wouldn't even call it top of funnel stuff. It's just like a rub that you have with your boss or why this doesn't work or this is what, like, it's very polarizing, kind of generic stuff or like why you need to, be resilient. And that, while it can get more eyeballs on your stuff, if you're chasing that, it's sort of like chasing the lottery because you just don't know what's going to hit. If you continue to hone in on the pain points of your audience and build your audience, we can help. One of the things that our tool does is helps to grow your connections and audience. There's a number of tools that can do that. If you're growing your audience, with your ICP list. Like, here's my list of people I want to reach. I'm also going to try to automate some connections and meet them, and then talk to them with my messaging about their pains and dreams. That's what gets you business. The other stuff may get you more likes, like as Steve said, like you not that he was doing that necessarily, but if you're
Sure,
looking
I
at
was.
if you're
Yeah, I
looking at
was.
the people that get the 6,000 likes, that's that's more like trying to be an influencer, which may or may not
Yeah, it's no
get you
life.
business. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think there is a difference in terms of what you're messaging into who, and being really targeted about that process.
If you didn't listen to anything we just said, the key to success in cold email is to make it not sound like a cold email. That's the too long didn't read version of that, guys.
I like
We
it.
could talk about it all day. All right. So this is Melissa's going to talk a little bit about when we say timing. She's going to define what timing means. It means different things. So I'd say this is a chance to ask questions if you're out there about like, well, what does it mean? Like what channels? Like what are the intervals? How many days? Like if you have some questions, go ahead. We'll be looking at that for feedback while we go through this slide here.
Yeah. So in terms of timing, so being on the platform that your audience is on is important. So that is research that you'll need to do and understand. B2B, which is the space that we're in, largely LinkedIn, um, YouTube, and that's where our audience is, and email. So as we think about timing, we're thinking about how we design different sequences and the deliverability of those messages, and measuring that. So, there's different ways that you can leverage an email and then a follow-up SMS, or maybe a LinkedIn direct message in an SMS, or maybe I want to send a message and then follow up with a video in my DM, or maybe it's just a voice note like, hey, thank you for connecting with me. I wanted to send you a quick note just to, here's my name's Melissa, and I work at Magnetic. We do this, and I'm just really glad that we have a connection now. Those are the kinds of things that are sticky, and that timing, just like a quick follow up, can make a huge difference in your uptake on your messaging and your results.
Kaylin had a question. Would like love a little more on get the data right. So when you're looking, love the question, Kaylin. Thank you. Getting the data right. Right now, think of data as information on your prospects, just really simply. And then the right data is going to be the people who aren't going to look at your email and say, why are they sending me this? This doesn't apply to me at all. Like you ever get those where you're just like, I have no idea why they think I'm this person, right? That person had a very bad list. It might have been the send all list, right? I'm not a CFO in India. I don't know how I got on this list. A list is going to be the people who resonate over time and wanting to start having conversations back and forth with you, or they have questions. If it feels dead and you're not getting any responses other than take me off your list, unsubscribe, that's the wrong list. Um, Before it's the wrong message, I would say it's the wrong list. Melissa, would you have anything to add to that being part of the equation in terms of her question on getting the data right?
Yeah. So as we think about, the customers that we work with, we typically work with businesses that have been in, companies that have been in business definitely over a couple of years. They are in a certain revenue range. We often connect with the co-founder or the owner. Sometimes it's a growth, the chief growth officer or chief revenue officer. So those are the people that we specifically target. And it's usually companies that are at a stage where they have run out of connections. They've done very, very well with their network, and now they need to grow because they either want to sell or they want to get to another stage in business, and they're like, I need to figure this out. So we have a very specific group. Like maybe you're a coach for women who are in midlife, right? So you could specifically target women executives, VP and above, a certain age level and above, maybe they're between, 40 and 60, and they want to do something different. They're stuck, right? So that's a specific demographic and psychographic, data that you could use to reach out to that person. And when you get the data right, that's what we're saying. Like, no list is going to be 100% perfect. You're always going to get a couple folks that say like, I don't know why you're reaching out. You just don't want a ton of those, right? So
Yep.
I would say we want to target, make sure that we know who our ideal target is. And then our data should reflect that. So, and make sure that we're not missing a bunch of fields, make sure
Yep.
we have all the emails accurate, that we're not getting a huge bounce rate, that kind of thing.
Yep. All those things matter. Bounce rate, you won't deliver emails anymore, right? So we could go on and on about that. Now, what we've done is afterwards, we're going to go ahead and send this to everybody who attended the event. So I'm just going to go ahead and DM that to everybody because if we're not connected, I'm going to send a connection request. But it's a guide on how to write a 7-step email to a CEO or just think a decision maker. And I think that, along with a prompt, is going to give you some good context on messaging and kind of how we think about it. At the end of the day, it has to sound like you, though. I mean, so that sounds like us. You should make it sound like you.
Anything that doesn't sound like the automated quick question, or hey, I'd like to tell you more about my exciting opportunity. You just don't want to sound like a bot or like all the AI junk that's out there.
Content led selling, the magnetic method, that will make you not sound like the junk out there. That's the goal of this. So we'll talk about how we do the right list and right message at the right time. And really, if you think about everybody wants increased efficiency, everyone wants higher conversion rates. That's what people come to us for, right? So when we talk to people, we just don't go like, yeah, let's turn it on. It's going to work. I think what we do first is kind of say, well, let's back up. Where are you at in your life cycle of, call it saturation? And then we look at your space and your competition and really understand your right list might mean my audience lives on YouTube more than they live on LinkedIn. It might mean they live on Facebook more than they are on LinkedIn. So the right list isn't just the right email address. And I want to make sure that we cover that because Melissa even said it. It's a lot of different things. And the more filters on that, the better, I think, versus a wide scope. Melissa, I'll let you handle the rest from here.
Yeah, so I think what we're trying to do is set the stage for this front end work, which is really arduous and quite frankly a pain in the ass. This makes all the difference, right? If you buy a tool off the shelf, and again, we're buy whatever tool. If you buy a tool off the shelf and you don't do this work, it's not going to be effective. It just
Right.
won't be as effective as if you do the deep work of understanding your audience, the deep work of getting that message right. And it's I'm not going to like sugarcoat it. It's rough. Like you were testing, tweaking, testing, tweaking. It's like dialing in that radio station. I might be dating myself, but you're like it's cackling a little bit. We're getting a little bit of the rate, but we have good benchmarks. We know what rates of response you should be getting for each of those channels. When you dial it in, you're getting the good percentage of responses that you need to. So this work informs all your content. So when you understand the message, when you understand your ICP and where they're at, now you can make videos. Now you can send a DM. Now you can send an email, and you know it's going to hit.
That's right. Let's get into more of
Let's get
like some
into
of the
it.
specifics. I think when we're talking content led selling, this is where you really say, well, what's the point of posting on social media? I think it's to show up on the screen of your ideal client, right? That is the point of posting on social media, giving you that increased visibility. There's different kinds of content. We could talk all day long about top of funnel content, middle of funnel content, bottom of funnel content. With our clients, we execute in all three stages of the pipeline. And that's a strategy. That is not guessing. That is not trying to make fun videos. I mean, that's all part of it, right? But at some point, your buyers need to feel that they're going down a logical journey. And I think that's really the content, Melissa, that you and the content team spend so much time talking about. Like, this has to have a point, there has to be structure. And I think that's the biggest thing on how do you show up is it really fits down a lane where the algorithms go, da da, we love it now.
Yeah, I love that, Steve. And we talk about the billboard and the door knocking all the time. So if you think about your videos on LinkedIn or your content on LinkedIn, that's the billboard. You're driving down the road, you see the billboard, and you're like, okay, right. And people see it. And they may see it multiple times. Like there's Melissa again. Okay. And then the door knocking is those direct messages, the email. That's like me coming to you and saying, "Hi, Steve. This is what I do. Do you have this pain too? Do you want to see this outcome and this dream as well? If you do, here's 3 other people I've worked with who had the same problem as you did. This is how we solved it. Like, let's catch 15 minutes, right? So
Yeah.
you need both. So as you think about this content on LinkedIn, there is the direct message, which is the door knocking, and then the hey, here's my video, here's my ghostwriting, or here's my content. That's the billboard.
Yep. We like to talk about it like that because, I mean, it goes back in time, it goes forward in time. It's just really timeless. This idea that you need both, you need all of it. And then, of course, you get asked about measurement. Is it working? And we won't get into that today, but I think, for our clients, they know when it's working because it works in a big way when it works, right? It feels like this big swell because when they're like this, here is you're looking at YouTube. And we took this client over here. We'll talk about a case study with the Maker Group, super fun. And they took a bold bet on us to create a YouTube channel and go out and find a bunch of people. We'll talk about that, how we got Fortune 1000 decision makers to get on their podcast who never wanted to respond to emails, how that created a bunch of pipeline, created a bunch of revenue that closed. But really, it was because of YouTube and LinkedIn. Those are the content layers. And it's your customers, your prospects. And they would start saying, hey, I can't get out of a meeting without someone saying something about our LinkedIn content. And they would say, that's how you know it's working. Even if it's a customer, I I I I was the one who screwed this up the worst. Think about your customers, not just your prospects when you're making videos. Otherwise, they're going to feel neglected. So YouTube is a great place to make community. Melissa talked about call it playlists. How do you make that a place where your customers can have a resource to learn about your um, new releases, the things that they're needing to learn about. So they feel like they have a place where they can really learn about you, specific topics, as well as the top of the pipe. So when they're coming to find you, they want to really feel kind of Sherpa'd into this because the second there's friction, they're out.
And Steve, if I could just highlight a couple things on this slide too. So the reasons you want to think about YouTube and LinkedIn has a billion users. YouTube is the second largest search engine.
Amen.
People are going to these sites looking for information, and they may not know about you, but they will find your content if it's searchable and available.
Yep.
So 2 billion monthly users on YouTube. And the ways that you can do some really creative things. Like we have customers that build podcasts out on YouTube that we can then splice up and repurpose.
Yep.
But you can also do explainer videos, behind the scenes kind of stuff, cultural. Maybe you've got a unique culture at your organization and you give to a certain, every Christmas you have a great giveaway to a local organization and everybody loves that. Like those are great stories and like little videos that you can splice up and put on YouTube. And that your content then goes to work for you. If you remember that stat earlier, 70% of B2B buyers are usually looking at a video before they make a decision. This is where they're going. So, second largest search engine, you want to be there and you want to be searchable.
And Melissa, I'm going to let you keep covering this because there's various kinds of content. Now, YouTube is video. Very specifically, YouTube is for video, right? And that's YouTube. Although they started as a dating app back in the day, a dating site, they are a video website.
I didn't know
But
that. Yeah.
especially when you come to LinkedIn, it gives you a feed, and there's a lot of options there, Melissa. And I think we just really picked three, and there's probably no shortage of 10. Um, why don't you highlight a few of those so everybody can see, like, maybe this is for me?
Yeah, and the reason we put this slide up here is we have a few clients that are like, I do not want to be on camera. I'm not comfortable. I don't like it. I come across, maybe they just feel like they come across as weird or they don't. But that's just not everybody loves the camera, and I get that. I mean, we always try to advocate for it just because it does get more views. But there are other creative ways that you can get a lot of traction. Making explainer videos that you can use animations. Here's some examples of some folks that use photos and they get, video tips with a photo or infographics or fun little kind of ways to demonstrate data visually, funny stuff, memes. You can take a podcast and just take the audio, which is the left hand picture there, where this is their professional headshot, and then they added like a little 30-second audio clip to it to make it have some movement and motion. And it's engaging, right? So there's lots of really interesting things you can do from a content perspective if you're not a fan of video. And even if you don't have a huge budget, if you might be a younger company, lo-fi video sells great. So you take your camera. There's a lot of people that start out in their car. I did a lot of videos in my car. and still do. So if you have the ability to do some professional, I would still weave in. We still recommend doing lo-fi video for all of our clients. Like, I'm at the airport, I'm heading to, this conference, and here's what I'm thinking about. People love that stuff. They like seeing what, I went out to dinner with my colleagues and had a great, meal. All that stuff works, as long as, again, you're still thinking about the messaging, thinking about your audience.
A couple case studies here as we wrap up, guys. Thanks for sticking with us. Rough crowd today. Wow, we had 4 or 5 at its peak. Last time we had about 32 people. We know now not to do the lunch hour, but the good news is that we're recording this. So thank you so much if you took time out of your day to show up today. Even if it's one person, it is worth it for us to do this, guys. That's why we're doing this. So thank you so much. From a case studies perspective, we're looking at the Maker Group here. Real quick, they did outbound, they did a podcast. And the cool part about these guys is that waterfalled a bunch of content. When you go to ChatGPT, you can do this. They are now positioned as a top 3 global negotiation training provider. When you say, hey, who's the best negotiators in the world? They show up number 3. And so that groundswell of content created that. And obviously, when you look at the revenue impact, it was significant. So I'll cover one more here, just to give some diversity. And this is really fun. I really wedged in some photos. Melissa's going to be like, oh my gosh. But I wanted to show you like how fun this was to go down to Nashville with these guys. Paul DeLuca, CEO, came to us about 2 years ago, said, me and my team, we want to post content and we want it to be a specific way, not just what's trendy. And we love that. And so we were able to capture their brand. Recently, we went down to Staffing World in Nashville with them. We're going to SIA down in South Beach in March. And they're going to have a podcast. Half their booth is a podcast with a little stage. They got the big booth, the one that you look at and go, dang, that must have been expensive. Because it works and people are noticing them and people are feeling their message and their authority in the space. And they're now being recognized as a leader in the invoice factoring space. Melissa can get in and tell you specifically what they do because it's very nichey. And if you're on here or listening, you probably think, well, I do something really nichey. I wonder if it will work.
Yeah, I think that's actually where we have a great amount of traction, is with those clients that have a very, they know their audience. It's in a niche industry, and we can really grow it. So this was a space that we really were able to help them just really dominate this market segment, because there was not a voice on from a podcasting perspective, or even from a video perspective and content on LinkedIn or YouTube. So just
Cool.
seeing how they were able to
All right.
grow, and, walking around a conference and having people say, "Hey, I love your videos," or whatever, and just watching that was really, really cool.
There we go. This is really cool too. We always love it when we get DMs that show up and turn into massive deals with Fortune 20 companies.
Yeah.
That's always fun. That's way more fun than seeing a post get a lot of likes, is seeing it really, really happen. And again, we covered this, LinkedIn, YouTube, email. That's the 3 components of the magnetic method, really consolidating it. And it's still so much, guys. And we just touched on really the top of, we scratched the surface today. And I would just say, if you want to talk about any of these platforms, especially YouTube, especially LinkedIn, especially email, let Melissa and I know. If you have questions about anything else, just let us know as well. We're happy to give you our thoughts on it. And obviously, we love it because this is what we do all day.
Yeah, and I think, if anything, the golden rule is just be of value. So if you follow any of the business gurus that are out there, they always say give, 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 maybe ask, right?
Yeah.
And then, so if you're creating content that's valuable to your audience, that helps them with their pain points, gives them little nuggets of information that'll help their business, give them, insight into something new, that is essentially what our content's supposed to do. You will get business that way. So just being consistent and being of value and engaging when people send you if they reply back. That follow up is always really important. But those are the things, I think, if in terms of, if there was any golden rule, it's be valuable, be consistent, and engage with your audience.
Amen. Wow. Hall Notes.
I
Didn't
just
know
threw
that
this
was
in.
coming.
This was a surprise to Steve because I
Woo!
thought it would be great, and I'm a big Hall Notes fan.
That gets me excited. I know. Thank you guys for attending. I did get a couple messages. It looks like there were some people who wanted to attend, and for whatever reason, they weren't able to see it, and we're able other people say, I see it fine. So I'm not sure what happened there, guys. I really apologize. I do know that the recording's there, so it's going to be in the LinkedIn feed. And we're also going to be trimming this one up, and we're going to do it again. And so, if something happened on the back end, and some people who wanted to get in, Chuck Shaver, thank you for the note, couldn't get in or couldn't see it in their feed. Thank you for letting us know. Maybe there's some technical difficulties we didn't know about it. Kaylin, thanks for the question, and Melissa, thanks for the Hall of Notes. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so the last slide gives our email addresses. If you want to connect with us via email, you can certainly do that. Send us a direct message via LinkedIn. We would love to be able to share with you the prompt, the email example, or anything that would be helpful for you and valuable for you as you go forth in your content journey. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Make it a great weekend.